All right, guys, welcome to Cybertruck 1. I wanted to go over this video. This video was just posted yesterday, the day before. It's called The Top 10 Reasons Why the Cybertruck Does Not Meet Expectations. And the truth of the matter is, I thought a lot of what is said here is either ridiculous, ignorant in the sense that they don't understand the product well enough to speak on it. And the other thing I think, and just for the record, I don't care if you hate the Cybertruck. I don't care if you think it's ugly. I don't think you care if you would never buy it. I don't care if you'd like to hear the sound of an engine. But what I seem to see a lot here is that there's a lot of things going on in the background with electric vehicles or Elon or Tesla. And so some of those things can be political, whatever. You're against free speech, or you hate Twitter, or maybe on the other side, maybe you hate electric cars because of some of the insanity that is encapsulated in the environment issue. For instance, although I am a massive fan of the Cybertruck, some of the things that are done in this country are ridiculous. I'm for free markets. Okay, I don't think things should be forced. I think it's asinine when the governor of California mandates electric cars for people who can't afford them, and then a month later says, "Hey, you can't charge it because the woods are going to burn down." And so, the world is not perfect. Electric cars have their own demons, just like fossil fuels. But I get the impression sometimes that the things that you're hearing from, particularly this gentleman, you can just see on a normal evaluation of a car. I think CNET is like one company, or you'll see these other companies that do vehicle evaluations, take it for a ride. There's like hostility or anger or contempt or cynicism in their voice. And it leads me to believe something else is going on than just whether or not the Cybertruck is a good vehicle or not. So here we go. It's going to be a long video. They're going to go through a bunch of things. I'm going to follow along, break things down, and set the record straight.
We appreciate your support. Without your support, we could not be doing what we're doing right now. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, every little bit helps, really. And,
truly does.
And we're really thankful.
And follow this channel. Obviously,
so
they have a
let's kick it
lot.
off
They
with
do
the
a lot.
Cybertruck,
They have a lot of
We've been waiting for
viewers.
this moment for 4 years, really, because in 2019, in November, there was the first announcement of the Cybertruck, the concept. And it made many, many promises. And the reason what I'm basing this episode and my feeling about this is that a lot of those promises did not deliver.
That is correct.
So that's partially my disappointment. It's not that this may be a bad vehicle, because you and I haven't driven it yet, right?
That's correct.
But it's disappointing nonetheless.
There are certain measurements.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop right here. So the vehicle came out 4 years ago, or the concept vehicle, and that's what's important to remember, that it was a concept vehicle. So in the production between concept and actually coming out with a vehicle, things change, things happen. There's COVID, there's supply chain. There could be something like, I'll just give an example. Say you wanted to have or not have a spare tire. If you put the tire underneath the vehicle and now it creates wind resistance, it reduces the distance of which the vehicle can go. Or if you put a spare tire underneath the vehicle and now it reduces the capacity, your clearance. Okay, so you have a concept vehicle, and then as you're building it, once you've hit a problem, a change of an idea, there is a domino effect. So to just label this and say just because it isn't what it was 4 years ago is unfair, and that goes for any manufacturer. In most cases, in almost every case, when a vehicle is first shown, ultimately when it's built, it many times doesn't look anything like the concept vehicle.
There are certain performance numbers. There are certain types of things that we were expecting from this vehicle, including price, that were nowhere near what was initially promised. And it's not that we're that surprised. The joke is, here I am waving my hand over my head and I'm coloring myself surprised. It's the painful reality to an awful lot of people who had those reservations that this isn't quite the vehicle that they were expecting. I think that that is part of it. But on the other side, there are a lot of things that this truck, which I'm going to call it a truck, and I'm on the.
Are you sure?
I know, because
Okay.
Elon Musk never called it a truck apparently, or like only once out of 20 times.
Yeah,
he kept calling it a car.
95% of what Elon Musk called this vehicle, he said car.
Yeah. So I will say that
So this might be, of this hour-long video that they do, might be the dumbest thing I've heard in the entire segment. I don't know. This is semantics. I don't know. I don't care if Elon Musk categorized it or mentioned it as a vehicle. He's sold, or as a car. He's sold cars for 20 years. It's a slip of the tongue. What are we talking about? It's a pickup truck. Okay. This isn't even a point to be made. Let's come up with something better.
a lot of you guys may be rewarded by a very capable and high-tech vehicle. So keep that part in mind as well. Okay,
Yes.
let's move forward.
So let's set the stage by how big this vehicle is, because it's hard to put that in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? So initially, 4 years ago, when Elon Musk and the Tesla executive team looked at this issue or problem, right? They were trying to solve a problem because pickup trucks are the most popular vehicles in the United States,
By a huge margin.
bar none. That's not a
In particular, the F-150, right? Not a full size, not an 8-foot bed, not a 450. Your F-150 style vehicle is the most popular pickup truck in America.
argument. It's the fact.
Yeah, it is.
F Series, Silverado, Sierra, Ram pickup trucks. They're top 3 sellers. Right?
Yep.
So they're trying to have their own version of it.
Mm-hmm.
So solving that problem, electrified next generation pickup. So they chose a crew cab Ford F-150 short bed dimensions, which is about 231 inches.
Yeah.
Almost 232 inches length and about 80 inches wide
Mm-hmm.
without the mirrors. And they said, those are our dimensions. We're going to build our own truck within that dimension. It's going to be a six-seater. That's
Yep.
what they promised. And it's going to have these big numbers that we'll go over.
Yep.
But the actual production truck is about 8 or 9 inches shorter. And it's no longer a 6-seater.
Okay, so if my calculations are correct, the difference between the Ford Lightning and this vehicle is 1 inch. And I will say, slightly disappointed it doesn't have 6 seats, but it's not the end all be all. And sometimes having a center console, a nice one rather than one that folds up and down. I would also argue, again, everything in life is a give and take. Because they shrunk the vehicle, made it a little bit smaller so that it will fit in a garage, so that it's just easier to manage, fits in a parking spot. There is a give and take to everything. Tesla may have wished to have a 6-seater, but because of other things in the design and engineering side of things, you have to make concessions, and that was one of them.
Actually, nearly 5% smaller in almost every measurable way.
Which is not a bad thing. This is setting the stage. Right?
But it's moved really from the full-size segment closer to the mid-size segment. So
Yeah.
that's something that.
Even if this is the case, obviously he made a point, and then this gentleman said it's not that big a deal. I'm not buying a truck for what I'm calling it, whether it's mid-size or full-size. I want a pickup truck. Most Americans want a pickup truck. And this verbiage as to what exactly where it fits by its actual physical size is not changing the game for anyone.
I should probably keep in mind.
So it's about as long now as a long bed crew cab Tacoma, which is really, like we said, the king of midsize pickups.
It is indeed.
Right. So that's just setting the stage. Now, I've been working all night, so I'm a little bit low on sleep. But how about we start with this? When Elon and his team are up there on stage, they called it, the product that only comes along every once in a decade, maybe, and they called it game changing. But is it really now a game changer? And I don't think so.
Yeah. So let's examine what a game changer is.
Okay.
A game changer is a vehicle. We're just talking about cars
Sure.
and trucks. that comes along that is doing things differently and setting a new bar of excellence. In my mind, that is essentially what you have. Now, there have been many of those. When the
Okay, I agree with their concept of something that's game changing, right? Different, never been done before. Okay, so the vehicle has 48 volt low voltage infrastructure. It has 800 volt high voltage infrastructure. It's the fastest pickup truck that's ever been made. It is the most resilient pickup truck that's ever been made. It's the first time that has an exoskeleton where the actual outside of the vehicle is part of the structural integrity of the vehicle. So I can go on, but these are game-changing, never been done before things. So can we not give credit where credit is due? It is the first ever.
Ford Raptor came out, the original Ford Raptor. That was a game changer. Nobody else in the industry built anything quite like that. I think we could say that about several different types of...
So, although I think a Raptor is an amazing vehicle, outrageously expensive, and a vehicle that can handle the Baja, it still has most of the characteristics.
Up trucks there. When the Ford Lightning came out, once again, the only other thing that was out there that I think was the game changer was the Rivian, the R1T, because at the time nobody else was doing a real production pickup truck. Yeah, I guess you could say
that's
GMC.
Electrified, yeah.
Right. But for the most part, that was a game changer. So, I mean, that's what we're referring to. It absolutely slams in the face and slams you in the face, I should say, and completely changes your perspective on what can be done.
And they also said, okay, we're going to rethink what a pickup truck can be or will be, and we're going to completely crush everybody else with what our pickup truck can do. Okay, I have several issues. So over
I
the
love
next
it when you get mad. Go.
over the next 30 minutes or so, we will discuss these issues.
Yes, we will.
Okay, so maybe 2 years. If this truck launched 2 years ago, I think it could have been a game changer.
I would agree 100%. Yeah.
But now we've moved on. But
I don't understand what that means. So if they had made this vehicle exactly the way it is 2 years ago, it's a game changer. But doing it now isn't a game changer. Has the internal combustion engine has full self-driving? I don't. And again, you can see there's sort of anger tied to this. You don't, when you normally watch vehicle reviews, the person driving it, testing it, feeling out the brakes is not pissed off. So I don't know what the backstory is to why the hostility here, but I once again argue that this is game changing.
What Elon Musk did, which he's been known to do, is actually pushing the industry, which is a great thing. I'm not gonna criticize him for this. He really pushed the industry, and I think that's why the Lightning exists.
Oh, without a doubt.
And that's why the Chevy Silverado EV exists, and the Hummer exists.
I think that's
right?
exactly. Actually, the Hummer is the example I would take.
Yeah.
And part of the thing that you have to keep in mind is that early on, we're talking 2019, I think, is around the time that he came out and was starting to talk about this thing.
Yes.
At that time, nobody really had an answer for this. I mean, they were talking about it in a vague sense, but nobody really had anything that was out there that we knew about. So when this came along, everybody started scrambling. And just like we say with pricing and with overall capability, the boats float as the water goes up and they all maintain the same level. So you have to do that or you sink. Yeah. And so these other automakers or truck makers, they had to find a way to challenge this because look at...
Okay, so the only thing I'm going to comment about this is that they mentioned, you know, whatever, Chevy and Ford and whatever, the Hummer, okay? The Hummer EV is the biggest, ridiculous, useless vehicle that's ever been made. The only purpose of that Hummer EV is if your genital size is small and you have lots of money to basically drive around in a vehicle that is the heaviest vehicle around, by far the largest kilowatt hour battery. I think it's 230 kW. You could make multiple Cybertrucks out of the battery size. It's absurd. It's useless. It provides no function other than bravado and ego.
Time, Musk was on fire. He still is. You know, Tesla was on fire.
Yeah, and in many ways they're still on fire. I mean,
We're not even trying to joke
the
about
best-selling vehicle in the world is actually the Model Y.
Yep.
And I'm talking about China included in Europe and Asia.
Yep.
You know, so that's not small.
Agreed.
Feat. I mean, that's a big feat.
No. And,
Okay.
and to challenge everybody is remarkable.
Okay, so all right, so let's say what is disappointing about the Cybertruck, and I'm using quotes when I say that.
Again, I don't. I guess maybe this is just sort of funny, or maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know why that's a stickling point. That it's a car. It's a 7,000-pound car with a bed in the back that has 17 inches of ground clearance and 4-wheel drive. I know we're nitpicking here, but I don't know why it's being mentioned as something that it isn't.
So Elon promised in their tri-motor, so 3-motor configuration, all-wheel drive version of this
That
vehicle.
is 2 motors in the back and 1 in the front.
Correct. He, initially promised 14,000 pounds of maximum towing. And I have here Exhibit A. I have a presentation that Elon is doing in November of 2019. And on the screen behind him, it says 14,000 pounds. So that would have been game-changing.
Yes.
Right, because really this is a profile of a half-ton pickup truck, so not a heavy-duty profile and footprint of a half-ton pickup towing 14,000 pounds. Now, yesterday, they said, oh, by the way, it'll tow up to 11,000 pounds, which the Rivian can do.
All right, so I suppose there's a point. I will concede I don't know enough about this. At some point, when does the value of how much you can tow become irrelevant? So some of these things may even be done because of DOT things or certification. So I will concede at the end of the day, I don't know how much a difference it matters, whether it's 11 or 14. We watched this video where it was pulling a sled, and it pulled more than a Rivian. It pulled more than a Ford Lightning. It pulled more than an F-350. I believe it was a diesel, might have been a gas. Anyhow, so again, we're back down to what they promised, and then it didn't come to fruition. Okay, it's not a deal breaker for me, and I don't know if it's the end all be all of being now the vehicle doesn't meet expectations.
We've tested it on the iGauntlet several times, actually.
Right.
Lightning is not far away at 10,000 pounds.
Silverado EV.
Silverado EV is between 10,000 pounds.
Another thing, again, I know enough to be dangerous about this sometimes, but I know with some of the classifications that if the overall vehicle weight, is then, I'm sorry, this is the dealing with payload, but when it comes to payload, which they're going to talk about next, forgive me, I'm crossing two things, but when it comes to payload, the payload can only be a certain weight because of the vehicle weight, and otherwise you're going into another classification.
And 12,500 pounds, which is quite not on sale yet, but it's on the cusp.
Yeah.
Right? So 11,000 pounds is no longer game-changing.
Yes.
Other people are already doing it and doing it quite well.
That is.
Last thing. Even if I concede the point with this, it's a little lower than expectations and someone's close. Game-changing can refer to the 20 other things. It doesn't have to be on every single... there can be certain things that are comparable to other vehicles. I don't think anyone, generally speaking, that's buying a Cybertruck or any 150 is going to have their entire eggs in one basket with towing capacity.
I mean, and was it like 2 tons less than, or was it? Yeah, 2 tons less than they said it was going to be.
Almost,
That's
yeah.
a significant amount.
Yeah.
All right, but what else is there?
So that's one disappointment,
Yes.
right? So I can really classify that as a disappointment.
Indeed.
I'm not
Because
disappointed.
You want to over-deliver, not under-deliver, right?
Yes.
So you want to under-promise and over-deliver.
Of course.
That's the mantra that we at TFL live by, right?
We try to.
Well, at least we try to. So now, how about we talk about the next thing that pickup truck people care about is payload.
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 Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So what did Elon promise us 4 years ago? I can show you.
Yeah, please do.
I can show you. So
3,500 pounds?
yes, yes. Where is that number now?
A lot, 1,000 pounds less?
Yeah, like I said, we're angry.
2,500 pounds now.
Which is comparable to many other trucks. Am I correct?
Yes. So here, this little column.
Yep,
This
yep,
is
yep.
from 4 years ago. He said up to 3,500 pounds of payload. Once again, would have been game changing
Yeah.
for a vehicle with a footprint of a half ton, right?
Agreed.
Now it's 2,500 pounds. Actually, in the vacuum, 2,500 pounds for this vehicle is really great.
Yeah, that's a fantastic number.
Right.
Okay, so it's not game changing, but it's also really great. And he promised this, but it's also great. So again, I would just classify this in the same towing thing that 99.9% of anyone purchasing an F-150 style pickup truck is not losing their mind over promises of this payload and tow rating. And so it is what it is. I grant it. Maybe they should have been more conservative 4 years ago when they promised these things. But again, I would argue there may be things that we don't understand that altered that. And so as this give and take that you get one thing, you have to concede on another. This may have been one of these things, but in my mind, again, doesn't change anything.
But
But it's not what they promised.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's competitive, but it's not leading the competition.
All right. So it's way better actually than the Silverado EV. It's quite a bit better than the Rivian.
Yeah.
It's close to the best Lightning number. Still.
So I feel like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They badmouth it, bitch and complain that it wasn't what was initially promised, but then concede that it's just as good or better than any other of its competitors. So again, it seems to me there's an axe to grind.
Better than that. It's better than the Hummer EV. So actually, a lot of those
It
numbers are
is,
great.
so it is
But
leading.
in
I
the
thought it
ice
was-
world,
yeah.
in the ice
that's-
world, 2,500 pounds. Yes, it's pushing like the Ram 1500 or Silverado 1500 or F-150 areas, but it's in the same neighborhood. So it's not ground.
Yes, it is. And the 150 market, as these two, and as we all know, is the market everyone's shooting for. It falls within the realm of expectations.
Breaking.
Okay, so let's continue because there's other numbers, and I apologize for saying.
And again, I'll concede one other thing. Maybe we have different perspectives of what we think is groundbreaking or what is important. My idea of what is really important is not having some astronomical number of towing that no one's actually going to do, but having a vehicle that drives by itself. I've been drinking. I'm tired. I want the car to go pick somebody up and have nobody in it. Full self-driving, I'm speaking of. That's game-changing. That is life-altering. That's technology that we've never had before. That is what this vehicle is on pace to do.
It was not competitive. It is competitive. What I meant to say was not with the ICE vehicles.
Yeah, with the ICE vehicles, because we also have to compare it to the ICE vehicles because Elon Musk and Tesla are calling out ICE vehicles.
Well,
You know,
especially in the early days when he was doing a tug of war with a Ford F-150.
exactly, and
Yeah.
they took a sledgehammer to the F-150 door, and then in this debut, just this week, they also called out Ford. They did a tractor pull against the Lightning, against the Super Duty, against the Rivian. So they're still calling out Ford.
Yeah,
So it's very clear.
it's obvious that they're aiming for
Yeah.
Ford.
Yeah, which is really the best-selling nameplate in the.
Well,
pickup
it
truck.
has
Right.
to be the
So
benchmark.
that makes
Yeah,
in terms
sense.
of sales.
They are
Which is
calling
fine.
out
They should
Ford.
call them out, right?
I would agree, as
Okay.
long as they have something that can actually
we're all on the same
legitimately go
page.
against them with.
And the other, the pickup truck guy in me says, what about gross vehicle weight ratings?
Yeah.
They did not publish those. So I really want to see the granular data. And, he kept calling it a car in his presentation. So I'm not picking up a lot of really truck jargon, from Elon.
What's your guesstimate to its weight?
Oh, actually, they did say that.
Ah.
They did say so Elon. So they did not initially state the curb weight.
No, they didn't. That's why
no,
I didn't know.
No, and they didn't state the battery size either. but they published about 68 to 6,900 pounds of curb weight, which is actually amazingly light.
That is
For-
really
for an
surprising.
electric-
I thought it would be close to 8,000 pounds.
Exactly, because currently the Silverado EV work truck that we tested, right? It
Uh-huh.
was the 4WT, which is the biggest battery Silverado EV.
Right.
That truck was about 8,500 pounds of,
Right.
of weight, partially in a large part due to the big battery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that battery is about 212 kilowatt hours. Tesla did not state the size of the battery, but
123?
Marques Brownlee did a review of the Cybertruck. You and I both watched it.
Yes, we did.
And he stated the battery size at 123,
Interesting.
which is actually smaller than the Lightning, smaller than the Rivian by a little bit, because those are about 134 kilowatt hours, but way smaller than the Silverado.
Well, that leads right into our next point, which is range. Because
Yes.
what does that mean?
Well, so this is kind of where Tesla, I think, is pretty strong because efficiency is kind of their forte.
It really is, yeah.
And I'm going to compliment them on this.
Okay, great.
But once again, sort of disappointments.
It is
they-
it's like 320 miles on their most efficient model. Am I correct?
340. That's what they said.
Okay.
Between 300, 320, and 340. Those are the three numbers they stated for three different versions of this truck.
Yeah, but
Well, they promised up to 500
that's
plus.
exactly it. Yes. They promised a lot more.
Did you see their solution to this? So their solution to this was, 340 miles estimated range. That's according to Tesla. By the way, we TFL Studios have owned 4 Teslas in the last several years.
Yeah, we
We had
have.
a Model X, we had a Model 3, Model Y, and another Model 3.
Yeah.
We've never seen what Tesla was promising in the real world.
That is
just
true.
according to us. That's just so we're really struggling.
They
so,
still test more efficient than a majority of the vehicles they go up against, to be fair.
yes. So the core efficiency, like miles per kilowatt hour, is still really great.
Yes,
But the total range numbers don't quite match up.
exactly.
Okay. So 340 miles by itself, well, it's just a little bit better than the Lightning. Okay. Now the maximum battery Rivian will be over 400 miles. The Silverado EV is at 450. So this 340 doesn't look like much.
Especially compared to what they promised.
Exactly. They have a solution. They said,
Okay. So, again, we're back to what they promised. And like I said, I think any EV owner would want more and more and more range, okay? I concede I am going to be an owner of a Cybertruck. I wish it was over 400. 500 would be spectacular. The 4680 batteries that they're using right now, which are cutting edge, are performing well, but they are still in the process of perfecting them. And so those same batteries will, in another year or two, will probably gain significant or at least calculable increase in power. But as anyone knows in the EV business, there is a balance, okay? And the balance that you're trying to manage is weight and cost. And so for the first thing is that Americans on average drive less than 40 miles a day. Okay, so to spend the money and then to have the weight of a battery that goes 500 miles. So basically you're lugging around a battery that's really heavy and reducing your efficiency for this very unusual occurrence where you need 500 miles. Okay, so it doesn't even make design sense for the vast amount of people to have a battery that's so heavy and so expensive, because 99.9 times out of 100, you don't need that battery, and so it's actually hurting you most of the time. That being said, a pickup truck where you're carrying heavy loads, long distances, or towing long distances, it does make sense, or you do need long range. And so, although I wish the 4680 batteries had the efficiency to get this range with 120 kW battery pack, or excuse me, to have the same amount of cells but have more kilowatt hours, have longer range, the idea of putting in something in the bed which again is really mostly about towing. That is the Achilles heel of an electric pickup truck, towing. So when you're towing, having a battery pack in the back of the bed is not an issue because, as I said, you're towing. So although I wish, again, things were better, I understand the engineering issues and the cost issues of doing that. And last thing I'm going to say, yes, it was promised, and unfortunately, the 4680 battery technology is never been done before, and they are working out issues with it. And so it is what it is.
There'll be a range extending version of it. And what do we think of when we say range extending?
There's no way they're going to put a gas engine in there.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Obviously, it's not a gas engine, as I've alluded to. It's a battery in the back.
Battery.
Okay, one more battery.
But do you know where it goes?
I think I do.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a storage tray in there?
Well, there is a storage trunk in the bed.
Yeah.
Which is like a ridgeline.
Yeah, or even like my little truck. And it's kind of cool because it can hold quite a bit of gear, duffel bags, whatnot. Mm-hmm. That's probably the one spot that they could put it in.
I wish he was right. That would be
that's
fantastic.
It's not big enough?
No.
They're going to put it in the bed?
They said it's an optional feature. It will take almost half the bed to have this range extending.
It's a third, but still nonetheless.
To shove in there.
What? So what's the point?
I don't know. And even with this big giant box in your bed, which is an additional battery, it'll have up to 470 miles of range. So still not the 500 that they promised.
Okay, but
close.
It's still okay. For those of you who are listening and not watching this, what Andre's showing is an image of the bed. This is from Tesla, and they have this huge block in the bed that's taking up easily a third of the bed.
Maybe a little bit more. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more, and that is the battery that he is referring to. I thought it would go into a little storage compartment. And
Which kind of makes sense, right?
Right, but I guess there's not enough room, so they decided to do this. Okay, so then you have a bed that's what, 3 feet long?
Yes, so it starts with a 6 feet bed. By the way, Marquez Brownlee used a measuring tape, which I loved. I
was very happy that he did that.
Yeah, real world measurements.
It was a really good review, to be honest with you.
Yes, actually. And he said the bottom of the floor was about 6 feet. Mm-hmm. You know, if you put the measuring tape on the bottom. But the cap slopes a little bit towards you when you're standing behind the truck. So actually, if you're putting large items, the top of the bed is actually shorter than 6 feet.
Right. So in other words, it pushes away from some of that cargo capacity.
Yeah. So in pickup truck, guys and gals, we want space. We're buying a pickup truck for a reason.
Yeah.
We want to move couches. We want to move things.
So most Americans, most white males buying the F-150 version of reality aren't putting anything in it. They're just driving it around and looking cool. But this is just on par, not that the battery, of course, but the 6 foot bed, four plus a couple inches wide, is par for the course for just about every short bed F-150. So there's nothing to scream and yell about because this is basically what everyone else has, and they're trying to go in for the market what everyone else is doing. So it's perfectly fine.
Maybe motorcycles.
Well, good luck with the couch if you get the range extender. I mean, you're going to have the tailgate down for a small couch.
Right. And most people don't need a range extender. 340 miles is typical for most vehicles that are gas powered, and this is just. Even again, it's not 500 miles, but even the 470, no one's driving this far without stopping, right? Everyone knows that humans need to stop to take a leak, to have something to eat, to rest their legs, or whatever else. These aren't metrics that are going to prevent people from doing and operating the same way that they've been operating for the last 100 years of vehicle use.
I just that chaps my hide.
Okay.
This is just manufactured rage.
Or take a breath. Okay, what's next?
Charging speed.
Okay. So Tesla has the most reliable and the best charging network.
Without a doubt.
In North America, period. But I saw the 250 kilowatt charge speeds, right? And I was a little let down. So that's the number they initially promised.
Okay.
So I can't be mad.
Okay.
But when they unveiled the semi-truck, the Tesla Semi,
Yeah, I remember that.
right? Remember, they showed different connectors and up to megawatt of charging. So there were 1,000 kilowatt.
Yeah.
And then there was a little asterisk when they talked about the semi-truck, and they said, could be also for a Cybertruck.
I never saw that.
And
You did.
I thought to myself, whoa, this would be game changing. If a Cybertruck could charge at 1,000 kilowatts, or, if the charging grid would support
That's
that.
the thing, if it would even support it. But
Yeah.
you would be filled in minutes.
Yeah. Which
Wow.
would be game changing.
Yeah, that'd be right there with the gas pump
But
thing.
it's not yet. So that's,
obviously. So what is it?
Okay, so again, there's some manufactured rage here. It's still on the upper echelon that anyone's doing, 250. I can also tell you, since the architecture is 800 volt architecture for the high voltage, and most of these things are just software updates, and the charging networks, the V1, 2, 3, 4 that you would need. So most of the supercharging don't even have the capability of charging at 1,000 or 500 yet. But I assure you, and almost guarantee you, when the time comes and the capability is there, they can likely increase. And so, first of all, 250 is fantastic. 500 would be game changing, and in anything remotely close to 1,000 would be, off the charts. But again, no one's losing any sleep over this. As he stated already, Tesla has the best supercharging system on the face of the earth. They have the best locations. They have the most amount of charging stations around. Like I said, in the best locations. Okay, move on.
Do you not?
250, which is less than potential speed of the Silverado EV, which is 350.
Right.
Which is on par with the Rivian.
Yes. First off, now I'm going to start getting angry. Yes. Where are you going to charge that truck? There is no infrastructure, okay? So Tesla already has the infrastructure. They're bragging about something that they could potentially have that doesn't even have the capability of charging. So, just leave it. Figure out something else to complain about.
Kind of on par with the Lightning, right? But of course, Lightning, all the manufacturers are trying to switch now to the Tesla charging standard, right?
Yeah.
And AC.
Why is that?
So there's a whole other thing going on here, right? But a couple of good things. Can I mention a couple of good things about charging infrastructure?
Yes, please do.
So Tesla did something interesting. So they moved from 400 volt system to 800 volts, which by raising the voltage in the vehicle, right, it makes a lot of things better, right? You can have less current because your voltage is higher.
Yeah.
That's less heat. You could be more efficient. All the goodness, including charging, right? And so it could support up above 250 in the future. So that's good. Every vehicle right now has a 12 volt system. Right? Even the Hummer EV does.
Yeah.
Even the Silverado EV has a 12 volt system. They said nay. They said 48 volt system will be the core system.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're completely going away with 12 volts. So why would this be done? I was with an event a few months ago, maybe a year ago, with a semi-truck manufacturer. And they were also switching to 48 volts because they have larger components.
Is this Nikola?
No, it was I think it was related to Magna.
Okay.
So some of the components they're working on for semi-trucks.
Gotcha.
And why do you need to raise your voltage for the base system? Well, semi-trucks have giant steering racks, big tires, heavy loads,
Yeah.
heavy weights. And, to do the lane centering and, to help you steer, you need higher voltages for those motors.
Yeah, because those motors are twice the size, basically, of a regular one.
And they're hauling heavier weights,
Exactly,
right? They're
yeah.
moving heavier tires.
And they're required
Yeah.
to work on a lot of
So
hardware
that's
load.
one of the reasons why
Right,
you would
right.
want to bump up your voltages. But how would that work? Like, what if the battery system, the 48 volt battery, goes down? How can you jump it? Because I can't drive up to it in my F-150 or whatever, regular vehicle.
Sure.
So I don't even know how that was going to work. So that's
I'm curious about that myself.
yeah. So we don't know.
I'm unaware
but
as
I
well.
think so. This is one way they're pushing the envelope, right? So they're pushing it, and I'm kind of happy they're doing it. But I don't know, for a regular pickup truck guy or gal, how is it going to play out, right?
That is unusual, but one thing about Tesla, I'll give them a lot of credit, is that in terms of charging and the idea behind charging, how it works, infrastructure and their vehicles, they've been ahead of the game from day one.
Yes.
And I think that this may be something that they foresee will be, worthwhile. We'll see. We'll see. We honestly don't know.
I could see other manufacturers switching to that.
Okay, so I'll add to this, since by no means am I an expert, but one major reason to switch in the low voltage side from 12 to 48 is that, as they were alluding to, the current is less, the voltage is higher, and so all the wiring that's needed in the Cybertruck is something like 70% less. So cost effective, and pounds and pounds and pounds of wire has been reduced. So lowering, and they're mentioning why they're so surprised that the vehicle only weighs 6,000 something and not 8,000. This is one of the reasons, not the reason, but a reason, is that vastly less wire, 70% less wire, 70% less copper, 70% less cost. That's why you do something like that. And furthermore, even things like a winch, the motor on a winch, you see whatever your standard size of a winch motor is at 12 volt, if you the winch motors that are of higher voltage are actually smaller. So there's savings in size and space and weight, even with things like that.
Possibly.
Right. I know, like, for example, buses. I considered buying a Prevo giant bus.
He wanted to convert it into a motorhome.
Yeah, that has a 24-volt system. So some of the bigger vehicles, buses, even existing buses, not new buses, have different voltages. Some military vehicles,
Yeah,
have
actually
different.
quite a few.
Yeah.
And it all goes down to having to work with heavier duty components that require just more power.
So the fact that they're switching to this, I think, is industry
Game
leading.
changing.
So I
It's
want
game
to
changing.
on this.
Okay, let's continue, because we got a lot more to talk about.
So I have an issue with this. Lack of door handles and a small frunk.
Okay, in order to get inside this vehicle, this car or truck, whatever you want to call it, there are 2 push pads on each side, one for each door. So it's a rectangle. And what you do is you give it a push with your thumb or whatever, and then it has a servo that actuates inside the door that opens the door up a little bit for you. Once that happens, then there is a spot where you can grab and pull the door open. It's actually next to the glass, although it doesn't really look like it's meant for that, but that's actually what it's supposed to be.
Okay, sure.
Fair enough, right?
Okay.
But there are so many environmental issues that could actually call that bad.
So let's just discuss a little bit of this. So we film a lot of videos with our friend David, right? He owns a ranch.
Yes.
We also own a ranch at TFL.
We do indeed.
But David really owns a ranch. I mean, he's got yaks, he's got different things, he's moving hay around. So first of all, and also in Colorado, cold temperatures, ice,
Snow.
So what happens when these push buttons get frozen over or covered with snow and ice? That's one issue. What if you're hauling hay and you have gloves on, or you have dirt and mud, from moving wood, goo, and you're trying to touch this little button and you can't do it?
Now Tesla officially said.
So he's going to allude to some of the things, but I'm going to jump right in here. Number one, I find this whole conversation a little odd, because you're making a point about a problem to something that you've never seen, you've never tried, and you have no experience with. So nor do I. But to suggest that it is a problem when you don't know that it is sort of ridiculous in my view. So as he's about to say, Tesla says, I think he says an inch of ice. I think they actually say a half inch of ice. An inch of ice would be, insane. Even a half inch is a lot of ice. But they're claiming that when the door is open, that it will push open and can handle a half inch of ice. Furthermore, regarding to this mud issue, instead of presenting handles, the door is a presenting door, meaning you have your key fob or your phone or the credit card, whatever they're doing. As you're approaching the vehicle, the door will actually open itself that first couple inches, so you don't even have to touch it. So these aren't bad ideas to think about, but to categorize them as problems when you haven't put your eyes or hands on it is unfair.
That it can, up to 1 inch of ice can be accumulated upon the door, and it'll still be able to be opened.
Okay.
But
we haven't tested that.
right,
They said that.
I really want to see that in action. So that's the first issue. It's interesting because I want to add to this one more thing when we're done with the.
Sure. I wanted to mention small frunk.
Yes, let's
Also,
yeah, please.
because it does have a little cargo space in the front, like most electric vehicles now do. But it's about 7 to 8 cubic feet. They actually didn't state the exact number, but Marques Brownlee put 2 carry-ons in the front of it.
He had to rearrange them several times
Yeah.
in order to close the frunk.
Yeah.
I would imagine it could probably hold a decent-sized golf bag, and that's it.
So I watched the video with Marcus. He rearranged it because he'd never done it before, but once you know how to put it in there, he was sort of spinning it this way or that way. It fits 2 of those bags, 2 carry-on bags that you would take it to an airport. And yes, I surmise that it would take a golf bag.
Didn't you say that? That's about that. And maybe that's what they wanted it to do.
Okay.
That's
But others have bigger.
yeah.
Ford's frunk is 14 cubic feet, almost twice that size.
we can fold up Roman and put him in there.
I think we've put Tommy inside of there
Well,
once.
we could put Tommy anywhere.
Yeah.
He folds up like a grasshopper.
Okay, so the Lightning is bigger. The Lightning has an amazing frunk. I will concede. It's humongous, okay? But what Tesla did is the Tesla Cybertruck and the Ford Lightning are 1 inch difference in total length. I believe the Cybertruck is 1 inch longer. But the bed of the Ford Lightning is 5.5 feet, and the bed of the Cybertruck is 6 feet. So the bed of the pickup truck of the Cybertruck is 6 inches bigger, yet it's the same length. And the reason that is that essentially, if you think about things, is the vehicle, the internal portions of the vehicle will push forward. So by pushing the bed further forward, it decreased the size of the frunk. It is what it is, guys. I don't care if you're buying a pickup truck for the biggest frunk ever. Go get yourself a Ford Lightning. I don't know if you remember this or not, but the Cybertruck has massive amounts of space. I guarantee you that it has vastly more overall cubic feet than the Rivian or the Ford Lightning. It has, like I said, a 6-foot bed. It also has that big compartment underneath. It also has a frunk. And it also has a tonneau cover, so the entire back of the pickup truck is like a frunk. It's closed, it's weatherized, it's security protected. So I don't know what your point is here.
The thing is that a lot of you guys, and I think I'm with you on this, are thinking, well, why not have a really big cargo area up front? Because all your power and your motors and everything, they're down below. Why not have this space? And I would agree with you. So it seems like it doesn't really provide the amount of space that I think many of us want.
Wrong.
Well, you know what would have been game changing here? If there was a passage from the
Yes, a
front
pass
into the
through.
cab.
Imagine that. And then from the cab to the bed, you could hold things that are like a telephone pole going
Yeah.
through the vehicle, which
So I would love that, okay? If you had a 6-foot bed and the tailgate's open and there's another 2 feet, that's 8 feet, and then you had this mid gate that goes into the vehicle, you could have that. But again, in life, okay, there's give and take. And if I'm not the engineer for Tesla, but I surmise the reason that you can't do that is because of the tonneau cover mechanisms and the way that it works. So you can't have this device where this door that closes the back of the pickup truck comes down and goes down past the back window and coils up and have something like that. This is my guesstimation as to why. So yes, I would like to have my cake and eat it too, but again, engineers sit down in a room and they decide what's more important. Is it more important to have a tonneau cover, or is it more important to have a midgate? And they came to the conclusion that a tonneau cover was probably more beneficial. I agree with them.
Bollinger, tried to show.
But they're not on sale.
They're not on sale.
But that's the concept, right?
Exactly. And there's other people who've sort of hinted about doing that who haven't done that either, Ram. But this plays into that. What about seeing outside the vehicle as you're driving?
What about that?
Okay, so if you are driving the vehicle in, I don't know, car mode, or if you want to call it that, there is a tonneau cover. It's a hard tonneau cover that goes up and completely covers the bed. Now, here's the cool part. That tonneau cover is strong. It can hold up to about 300 pounds of weight, I believe. And so it'll guard whatever's in there. You know, you can leave it, and it's good protection. Then, when you retract it, it slides down behind the bulkhead.
And it's powered.
Yes. And it slides behind the bulkhead for the rear passengers out of the way, which all that is cool, I think.
Great, if it works.
If it works.
Okay.
Because it's all automated.
Sure.
Here's the deal. You do have a rear window. It's a very small one, but you do have one. It's completely useless to use if you have the tonneau cover in its up position. You look over your shoulder, you're going to see nothing but black because it's completely covered. So in order to see out of that rear window, you have to lower the tonneau cover completely. And that's sort of it really bothers me personally because, yes, you have cameras. I know that these cameras are quite good nowadays, but being able to actually look out of something that's not obscured by snow or something like that and look out of a window, I think is really important in a truck.
Yes.
Okay, so again, you can only do so many things at one time. So if you want to see out the back window with your then leave the tonneau cover down. That's what you do. If you want to have better fuel efficiency, if you want to keep the stuff dry in the back, if you want to keep things secure, the front screen, the largest screen in vehicle history, permanently has a rear view mirror going with the camera. So at any moment, at any time, all you do is look at the screen and you can see the back. Now, I concur. I've been driving for 30 plus years. Looking towards the screen a little bit lower is different than looking up. So it will obviously be something that you need to adjust to. But what do you want me to tell you? I drove a fire truck. I was a career firefighter for 30 plus years. We just used the side mirrors, and that thing weighed 40,000 pounds. You can drive a pickup truck using side mirrors or a camera.
Because potentially your vehicle is heavy, you could be towing something heavy
or hauling something.
Oh, yeah. So you need to be aware of all those elements.
I
so
agree.
I totally agree with you. So they did say that, well, first of all, there could be a center mirror, or maybe there could not be one. So because of the Marquez's review, there wasn't one.
Yeah, that's correct.
Some of their images show a central rear view mirror inside the cab, but it's not a camera-based system.
So I'm seeing mixed. I know what they're talking about, but I know for a fact there is a rear view mirror camera on the screen. Always on the screen. It's a rectangle. It looks like what you would look at a rear view mirror, but it's on the screen. It's always there. I will concede I have seen this on some Cybertrucks and not on others, that there was this basic mirror, your standard small little mirror, but I don't know whether that's an option or it's been eliminated. Nevertheless, I think I've answered most of these questions.
They do have a camera on the back of the truck, and that image is projected in their center screen, the infotainment screen in the
Correct.
center. So your eyes have to come down, look at that image on the screen, and you can see behind your vehicle. For the last 100 years, we've been looking up at our mirror.
Yes.
So we have to retrain everybody now
Yeah.
to look down. Plus, focus. My eyes are getting a little bit older. And I have trouble focusing on, far away versus and switching that focus instantaneously, it's difficult for me.
I agree 100%. And there's one more component to this.
I don't agree 100%. The distance essentially from looking at the mirror is as close to the distance that the screen is away. So I understand getting old and looking at long distances and short distances, but you're looking at two shorter distances. Again, this is nitpicking, but we'll move on.
View mirrors. Now, I know that in order to have a vehicle go through the DOT requirements in the United States, at least, you have to have physical mirrors on the side.
And this does.
It does.
Yeah.
Tesla fought against it because they wanted cameras. I get it, especially
aerodynamics, right?
Aerodynamics and the cool factor. And they still had the cameras, by the way, but they put on mirrors, in order to, say, okay, yeah, we get it. We have to follow the law in order to build this thing. Also, they had to put on a windshield wiper. We'll get to that in a minute. But these mirrors, they don't look good. I mean, forget the aesthetics part. They just look like they're very small.
And they're triangular once
They're
again.
triangular, and maybe that's for aero, but the bottom line is...
So I think the mirrors look good. Okay, they're triangles, and they match sort of the vibe of the vehicle, and you need to have them. And whether they work properly, one would have to actually ride in the vehicle and figure that out. So to jump to any conclusions that they don't do the job is premature. But that being said, look, I own a F450. They have big mirrors. I like being able to see. I like having two mirrors where you have one pointing low to the ground so you can see curbs and things going on, as well as all around the vehicle. So I'm with you here, but again, you're trying to follow DOT guidelines, and you're trying to be lower your coefficient of drag, and so there's a balance.
Buy a pickup truck having decent sized mirrors, whether or not they're being used, which I think they will be used, to be honest with you.
For towing, that's really critical.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly my issue.
And
as we all know, again, this is first of all based on the F-150 model, right? The most popular vehicle sold. Most people towing, I would argue, are using 250s or greater, or at least big vehicles that need big mirrors, a horse trailer, and where you have the extenders and all that stuff. So I'd like to know how many of the average Ford, I always used Ford, but I'm referring to any of the 150 version trucks. How many of those people are really towing large things? Probably not. They're probably going to a 250, 350.
It seems like aesthetics are somehow winning out over the function. And when you're talking about the pickup truck, function should just be the king, right?
Right.
So
I'm going to comment on this, and I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, because you're talking to a guy who's owned 3 or 4 F250s, 1 F450. I never bought a pickup truck that wasn't had an 8-foot bed or had a rack, because when you're actually doing real work, you need a full-size long bed pickup truck for carrying things, whatever else. But this market is not that. This market is covering your standard old white boy that's driving a pickup truck around town. But this one has the ability to do a zillion things. Go Bajaing, full self-driving, a killer sound system, tailgating. It's groundbreaking.
that's one item. So not ideal.
No.
Also, the tailgate and the bed, we mentioned how long it is already.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, since I mentioned the white boy things, I just want to answer this question right now. I've looked at statistics. You can go on and look. They have a listing. And again, obviously, all kinds of people drive gay, straight, black, white, whatever it is. But white males, it's the biggest, particular of a certain age. The F-150 style pickup truck is by far the most common and popular vehicle in the United States, period.
Storage compartment underneath the bed. There's
Which
a
is cool.
Small area. That's
Yep.
cool. And it's now, Elon called it composite, and then Marques Brownlee called it bedlined. So I'm not sure which one. Is it composite that's also bedlined, or is it just composite like a Tacoma?
Yeah.
Or a Tundra would be? So no matter what.
I'm not 100% positive, but I've heard many things. It's a composite. They did change it originally. If you remember, the inside of the bed had all these deep grooves and channels for doing things, and I think there would be so much debris and stuff in there, and that they were convinced to change it to a more not a modular, but something able to do work and not cause problems with getting grit and grime and dirt and so forth in the channels.
Could be dent proof and or tough, which is good.
Right, it is good. The original concept of the vehicle, when it came out years ago, it had essentially a stainless steel bed, and they moved away from that. It looked cool, but it needed to mature, and
Agreed.
It has. So this looks like a very usable bed. It has cleats on the sides for tie down. It has pretty
and also
good
the
depth.
track system, so you can move those cleats. So that's also very important.
Yeah, all of that looks very usable. So that I'm very bravo on that one.
Yeah, and also they have onboard power. So the inverter, I believe they said 9.6 kilowatt from the bed, which kind of matches with the capacity of the Lightning. And then 11 kilowatts out of the actual socket, the plug socket, where you charge the vehicle, could be bi-directional, right?
Which I really like. I
Yes.
think that's huge. So as long as you have the right type of converter, you can power a large work site, a house, stuff like that.
Yeah, so they have that, but once again, not super groundbreaking because others are close to that as well.
Or have already done something like that.
So there's times when these guys drive me crazy, and this is another one of them. What do you mean it's not groundbreaking? Because Ford mentioned it. There is less than a half of 1% of vehicles in the United States currently right now doing bi-directional charging to homes. So like, I don't understand the point how it's somehow an insult or you're trying to belittle or take something away from the Cybertruck. It is fantastic. And granted, let's also remind everyone, I think they might even mention it here, that it isn't even that simplistic. You have to do certain things to your house so that this works. You know, you have to have, if you're hooking it to your house, you have to have a device that basically disconnects from the grid so that the battery isn't going through the house and into down the line and injuring a lineman or something like that. But this is fantastic technology. I'm happy Ford started it, and hopefully Tesla's has perfected it, or at least done equal. You know, not everything. Okay, not everything in this vehicle has to be. There's nothing wrong with being just as good.
And we actually, F-150 Hybrid had something similar with a 7.2 kilowatt system that we used 2.5 years ago.
That's exactly.
So once again,
yes.
Okay. By the way,
again, this is an insult. They turn a positive thing into somehow belittling, because Tesla should have had 50 kW going to the house. I don't know. It's just there's other things to complain about.
I want to compliment them on their alloy body. They called it, well, it is stainless steel, but it's their own alloy metal that they kind of created themselves for the Tesla Cybertruck, because they're saying it's dent-proof. We haven't tested it yet ourselves, but being dent-proof is good for a truck.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Now, you've probably seen some stuff on social media where there have been some social media stars who have taken components and slammed them into this vehicle. Oh, I don't know, like, arrows coming from a bow.
Okay.
And it will dent, okay, with something that's coming at it at a really high rate of speed that has a very small tip.
Or even a bullet potentially could dent it.
Exactly. But I think what they're referring to is just small dents,
Well, once again, let's go back to the ranch, right? David, I was talking to David a month ago, and he was going through his gate, and one of the the gate shifted and hit the side of his GMC.
Right.
Put a big dent in his door.
Sure.
He's kind of upset about it. The truck is 33 years old, but he didn't want it dented.
Yeah. And
So that could have protected this.
Yeah,
right?
it may have.
Yeah.
Now, once we haven't tested it, we don't know. We don't fully comprehend what it will.
So this is two things I want to comment about. So, yes, is it impervious to anything? Yes. When Joe Rogan shot it with an arrow, there was a slight mark, and if you shoot it with a high caliber, or a handgun or what did they use? A Tommy gun. Of course it's going to put big dents in it. The point is, branches and shopping carts and all these things, it's going to be impervious to something like that. An arrow that has a point the size of a needle going, God knows, 1,000 foot per second, whatever the case it is, of course it's going to do something. It's not the point. The other thing I want to point out here that is happening a lot during this episode here is that when they haven't tried something, okay, they're very like when if something is said by Tesla, they won't concede that it's factual because they haven't tested it. Yet they come up with 50 things that's wrong with it, yet they haven't tested it for that either. So it's like this, this odd imbalance of what's good for the goose isn't necessarily good for the gander.
Actually do at certain angles with denting and whatnot, because other than Roman going to the initial event, we haven't seen it in person since then.
Yes. Now,
here's a big one.
Off-roading. It's a big one for truckers.
Yes, it is.
And all people, actually. For recreation.
For me.
For Nathan.
Yes.
For recreation, for work, going to a job site, or even going to play. Off-roading is really important for a pickup.
Agreed.
They have amazing stats. I mean, 17 up to 17.4 inches of ground clearance in extraction mode because it has a height adjustable suspension. That's bonkers.
Yeah, that's really good.
Agreed.
But I'm questioning some of these numbers. And what else?
No spare tire.
Right. So once again, as I was saying, Tesla, when they come up something wrong with it, they have no evidence and they've never done it before. But when Tesla says them something, they don't believe it because they haven't tested it, done it before. But okay, let's move on.
What?
There's no spare tire.
There's
no place for it. And yes, you can buy one and throw it in the bed, I guess.
And they suggested it to using the tie downs to tie it down in the bed.
Which is just great when you want to use your bed for something else.
Yeah.
I don't really understand where their thinking is on this by not having a provision for a donut at the very least. Off-roading is one of the most dangerous places for tires. Andre and I have personal experience with cutting many tires in the past. And these tires that they have on there, they're specially made, by the way, they're Goodyears, right? That are specially made for this truck. They're very unique. And I'm sure they're really stout. They probably have to be to hold a vehicle that's that heavy. But the reality is it's still rubber, and it still can get
And
hacked.
it's based on a 20-inch wheel.
Right.
So there's not a lot of sidewall.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some sidewall. This
There's
is basically a 35-inch tall tire with a 20-inch wheel. So it's okay. It's not great.
Okay, so I'm going to dig into this. And so I do have some experience with it as well. I'm also from Colorado. I also have a vehicle that has 41-inch tires with a camper on it. And I've gone off-roading. And so by no means am I going to Moab doing rock climbing and whatever else, but been on beaches, been on fire lanes, been in streams, been in Iceland, done a lot of things. So this tire thing is very common. It's becoming more and more common in the auto industry, okay, of not having spares at all. Some of it's for weight, some of it's for storage, some of it's because just Americans aren't in the business of changing tires anymore and no one gets out and can fix anything on their own. So they've come up with other things like compressors or stuff that shoots slime in the tire or bringing tire fix-it kits with you, right? There's sometimes a way that you can get away with not having a tire. When we're talking about, this off-roading stuff, okay, I think what they're saying is a little disingenuous because, first of all, you're also talking about oversized vehicles. It's not so easy to carry an oversized vehicle in standard compartments or under, for instance, in the Cybertruck. If I go under the bed like they typically do on a pickup truck, well, if I go under the bed, now my clearance is reduced. If I go under the bed, now it sits down lower, and now I have coefficient of drag losses, and so now it's not as efficient. So it's not like Tesla went out of their way and said, we're not going to give a tire because we want to screw people four-wheel driving. But, come on, guys. I've been to Moab. Every 4x4 guy that's going out and doing things, Jeeps don't have compartments. You're going to put it on the back of the tailgate. if you have a camper, you have it on the roof or on the side or whatever. People that are going to be doing serious off-roading where they don't want to be stranded in the woods or wait a week to get a tire are going to manage with all the different accessories that exist. For your average Joe Cybertruck driver that's driving down highways and living in suburbia or whatever, he's going to call a hook and they're going to tow him or throw, throw something on to get him off the road or do whatever. So I don't think this is fair.
Is okay. I'm not griping about that part. My issue is the fact that if you have a problem on the trail and you slice that tire, especially that sidewall, you're stuck. You're stuck until somebody comes along with another tire and replaces it.
And if
Yes,
you're in the middle
agreed, but
of a
I've
forest
answered
or a
that.
mountain, you may be waiting for a long time.
Yeah, it's a real issue. And they're not the only ones who pull this, by the way. There are other automakers out there who don't.
Hummer EV.
Yes. How much should we have to spend to get that damn spare tire and then slap it down into the bed? That was ridiculous, and we hated it.
And it
we
took
said
half the bed.
Yes, exactly.
Hummer, yeah.
It ruined the bed. So we're not just holding Tesla's feet to the fire on this one. It's whoever pulls this. But the reality is that if you're going to go off road in this vehicle, beware because there's no spare tire.
And so I already answered all these questions and gave the logistics and the reality of things. I would love to hear these guys answer the question. If the reason why we're talking about this, or the reason why the industry is coming up with accessory ways to put the tire, is with oversized tires for going off-roading. Let's just say it was my top priority. Where on a F-150, a Raptor, a Cybertruck, a Lightning, a Rivian, where on earth could you put the thing? It's a problem without a solution. That in the manner of which these two are suggesting.
But on the positive side, can I say something positive?
Yes, please.
4-wheel steering. Thank you, Tesla. It works great on a Hummer EV that we've tested.
That's like game changing almost.
Owned one. And it's not just for off-roading, everyday driving, parking, making maneuvers. Even with towing, it could be a little bit more stable.
Simply making a U-turn on a difficult street.
Yeah, or making a U-turn on a very difficult off-road trail.
That is correct.
All those things are good.
Yes, I cannot fault them for putting that on that vehicle. I'm thrilled that they did it. I don't know do you know what the angle is for the rear wheel?
Marquez said up to 10 degrees.
Okay, that's great. That's competitive with Mercedes that does it about the same.
Yeah, and I think Hummer is close to that as well. So competitive numbers. The wheelbase is around, I believe, 145 inches, which is very similar to an F-150 wheelbase. So having that large wheelbase and having 4-wheel steering will be key to actually making this truck easier to operate.
Okay, let's get to because we still have more topics to cover here.
I know. I don't know. I'm still fired up.
I know you are.
Yes,
let's
they are.
get to
Is it truck or car?
Yeah.
We've mentioned this several times. So, and Roman, he's not here on this podcast, but he has also an opinion of his own.
He certainly does.
He's calling this the cyber car. Have you heard this?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Okay. So, here's a couple of things. Besides the Elon Musk calling it a car, 19 times during his presentation, and besides Tesla giving this vehicle to some reviewers who are not known for pickup truck reviews and towing and off-roading and that type of thing, just points to the way that this is kind of a large car. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where it's pointing. I actually cracked open a Merriam-Webster last night at midnight.
All right.
I cracked one open and I looked up a definition of a car. And it boils down, there's several definitions, but it boils down to moving people. Elevator could be a car. A train car can be a car. A vehicle can be a car if it's moving people. Now, a truck definition is moving freight or stuff. A pickup truck combines both. But if you're not calling it a truck, that means you're focused on people, moving people.
Okay, that's a really good point.
That's my view of it.
Okay, I'm happy you went into the weeds on that one. I will say that this is a truck for car people. I should say a truck for electric car people.
There.
That's my definition to it, because some of the numbers still are quite good, and its capacity and its overall
Oh my
capability.
God, 2,500 pounds.
Yeah, all
Yes.
of that is quite good. We don't know how any of that will affect range. Of course, one of these days we will test one at some point in time. But I think that a lot of truck people demand different things in a truck per se, but a lot of car people out there that have always wanted a truck and they're EV types, this might be the direction they want to go. And I
Okay, so I let that play out a little bit to give them some room to talk here. This is ridiculous. I don't. I'm sort of baffled as to why these are truck guys that have a website that talks about trucks, and they're coming up with these semantics to pretend it's not a pickup truck. And the only rationale I can see is they are trying to belittle. This is like a testosterone thing. This is like, oh, you're it's a pussy. You're a bunch of pussies. It's not a pickup truck. It's a car. Give me a break. It's embarrassing. I don't know. Everything else in this entire video has been, in general terms, perfectly fine. I think the opinions I don't agree with, but this is just stupid. And it's meant, I think, for their viewers that are EV haters to have a reason to pretend it's not a pickup truck and make themselves feel good at night. It's absurd.
I want to say something else to go on record. As much as I'm not a huge fan of the exterior design, I do like the very front of the vehicle when you look straight at it. I like the front light, the bar that goes across the entire front of it. I think that's a good thing. And I also
Actually,
like
it's
the interior.
trendy also.
Yeah, exactly, because
Yeah.
Hyundai's doing it with some of their components.
Hyundai's doing it. You know, the Lightning, the premium version of the Lightning has that.
Yep.
The Rivian has something similar where the light comes
Exactly, and I do like that design part. But it's the interior that I like, but I also have an issue with that massive front windshield.
Yeah, and the windshield wiper that has to come with it, and it's a single wiper.
Which is the largest one put on a production vehicle.
Yeah, of any kind.
Of any kind, as far as I know.
Yeah,
That's
and
game-changing
it's
windshield wiper.
largest windscreen, and it's also supposed to be rock-proof or some sort of hail-proof. So, can I say a couple things?
Yes.
So our friends at Jeep, they have something called Gorilla Glass.
They had to do that.
Well, yeah. So the Jeep windshield is almost vertical. Right?
Yeah, it's almost flat.
Which is fine. We love Jeeps, as you know. But Gorilla Glass is supposed to be preventing, some of the chipping from, I don't know, Colorado driving.
Which well, we have a lot of rocks here. My
Sand.
windshield right now is broken because of a rock.
Yeah. But Gorilla Glass is only good to a point. It's still a piece of glass that's a little bit tougher, and it's still cracked and it still breaks.
Yes.
So we need to test this.
Right. So here's a problem, and they don't know if it is a problem, and so we're going to assume that it is, and they'll test it this year. So, yeah, okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The the windows on the side of the vehicle are super strong. They're no longer throwing steel balls at it. They're throwing baseballs at it. But it's a stronger than, I think it's like a dual pane composite glass. Anyway, what are we talking about here? As Iverson would say, we're talking about glass.
I mean, they say it's rock-proof, but to what extent? I want to test it.
Well,
Test it.
If I only knew of a former MMA fighter who likes shooting a bow and arrow type thing at a Tesla, who decides to shoot it at the front of it instead, then we would be able to go further.
Well, so Franz, the chief designer at Tesla, threw a baseball at the side glass, but he's not necessarily a pitcher.
Yeah, when they did that with the pitcher last time, it didn't go well.
Well, Franz, so he couldn't put a lot of heat behind this ball. And also, he threw it at the side glass, not the front glass.
Yeah.
I want something serious thrown at the front glass.
And think about...
Okay, so the front. I'm surprised they haven't brought this up, and I forget. Maybe they'll bring it up even further down and complain about it. But initially, they threw a ball bearing at this. I mean, a really hard piece of steel. Obviously, the window it withheld the ball from going through the glass, but it broke it. Obviously, the most famous part of the entire reveal 4 years ago. They went with baseballs this time. Actually, if you watch a video when they're in the parking lot, there's a line of people, and there's maybe 20 people or more, and people are repeatedly throwing baseballs on the side glass. I can tell you as a firefighter who's been on a million motor vehicle accidents, pin jobs, and so forth, the front of windshields are stronger in the sense of not letting projectiles through. So you could take a punch on, I don't know about the Cybertruck, but on normal windows, you can take the punch on the side window and pop the glass and it shatters into little pieces. But if you do that on the front glass, it doesn't work. And this is because it has a film of plastic or something so that something falls off a vehicle, it doesn't come through the window and then kill somebody. I mean, that does still happen at times, but it's vastly stronger than for DOT guidelines, it has to be a lot stronger than the sides. But again, we're talking about glass.
The entire front end of the vehicle pretty much that represents where the front glass is. The other issue is from the inside. I think it looks like it might be cool to look out of, but the sun visors don't cover the entire front upper section of the windshield. When they come down, you still have a slot where sunlight can get through. Now, I'm sure they probably looked at that and said, okay, we can still cover your eyes so you don't get blinded. But it's an unusual tactic, and I'm curious to see how it works in practice.
Yes, I will add this to the list of how many. They are calling fault to something that they don't actually know if it's a problem. They've never seen it, never used it, have no experience with it, but yet they're listing it as an issue. It's just weird.
Yes. Now, finally, the top 10 is over with
yes.
this. It's price.
Dude.
Price. Okay. To Tesla's defense, when they announced $39,900 in November of 2019, this was before the pandemic.
Yep.
And this was before many, many other things have happened.
Indeed.
In our world. But you and I have been looking at this price, $39,900, and they also stated some other prices like $49,999 and $59,999
right.
for some of the higher end versions. Oh boy, were we wrong?
We were way off.
Tesla was off.
Well, yeah.
Yes. Let me show you another image of what.
So, I don't know how long this is continue because this actually at this stage of the game I have not watched all this. Some of this I had watched previously, but it's unusual that you start this segment or this portion by saying a bunch of crazy things have happened in the last 3 years. COVID, supply chain. He didn't even call it out exactly, but the economy, but more importantly, inflation. So he gave and acknowledged all these reasons as to why we're not in the same place when, not to mention these were just estimations, right? I mean, again, we're back to a 4-year ago event where you're giving all these different specs and so forth. And I don't know if anyone thought they had to be exactly what they were, but again, under the circumstances of what has occurred in the last 3 years, including supply chain mostly and the inflation, why does this hurt Tesla's credibility? I don't understand.
Happening right now on Tesla's website, which is the price. Oh, no, it's Roman and Tommy. I don't want to see that.
So he's clicking through images right now.
Frantically.
He'll get there.
Here we go. So if you click order now on the Tesla website, it takes you to a page where you can order one. Mm-hmm. And it says purchase price starting, well, we can't even talk about starting price because this truck, the rear wheel drive only, will be available in 2025.
Yeah.
So it's still over a year away.
That's correct.
But the starting price is $60,990. So this is really $20K, over $20,000 more, almost 50% more than they promised 4 years ago.
Tell them how much the all-wheel drive one goes for.
$79,990.
So keep in mind too, first of all, I will still go on record saying that the rear-wheel drive will never be produced. That's my guess. It's probably the least interest, has the least amount of interest. It doesn't have most of the features people want. And if you can sell vehicles for 80 grand and 100 grand, why, when your not your economy of scale, but your margins are the best. I don't. If it happens, it's going to be 5 years from now, let alone next year.
Oh, which, by the way, as expensive as that is, matches the Silverado EV work truck.
And I have no problem with that. My only issue is the fact that they once again do not come close to what they were promising.
And of course,
So again, they'll just keep beating and beating the drum that it wasn't what it was. And again, we all know why, and things change and design change and whatever else, but we'll just keep hammering and hammering away on that. But okay, the all-wheel drive, I would argue, is under the tax credit. So for instance, since these guys are in Colorado and I'm in Colorado, not only are you getting $7,500 tax credit applied at the point of sale, so you're going to drive to the dealership, but you don't even have to outlay the $7,500. It's going to be applied there at the dealership. But in Colorado, there's a $5,000 rebate. So that also, as of January 1st, will be applied at the dealership. So what is that, $12,500? So this vehicle is $80,000 and you take off another $12,500, okay? For a vehicle that goes 340 miles range, that's fantastic. Is going to have the capability of full self-driving. What that'll cost, or whether that's included, or what goes on, I don't quite know. But you can run through. I can't see because it's too small. But without question, the all-wheel drive Cybertruck is game-changing and blows away any competitor, any model, any manufacturer for $60-something thousand in Colorado.
Cyber Beast, the triple motor one, the quickest one that, could win a lot of drag races.
Possibly.
99,990, basically 100K, which in the current world doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, you and I just tested two $100,000 trucks, which were diesel, but off the promise.
Yeah,
These guys are a one-trick pony. It's just I keep hearing the same thing. But here, I'm going to push back for reasons they aren't. I think the Cyber Beast, doesn't have value. First off, why would I pay, if I could pay $80,000 for an all-wheel drive dual motor, right? That goes 340 miles in range. Why would I spend an extra 20, which is actually 30, because now not only is it 20,000 more, but it's actually over the tax credit limit, and so I don't get the $12,500 in Colorado. I don't get $12,500 or $7,500 if you're in other states. So it's going to cost me 30 grand more for a vehicle with less range. And look, I don't need to drive 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. I have zero desire to be driving around in a 7,000-pound truck with stuff in the back at Mach 1. So if it came with it, I'd surely take it, but is it worth $30,000? No. To have a little bit more towing? No. Same payload? I don't see the value in the Cybertruck, and I will be surprised. We're going into same thing, testosterone, small genitalia mode at some point. Why would I spend 30 grand more for a vehicle with more performance but less range? Not my idea of a good time.
Usually off the promise.
And this is the part where you guys, especially those of you who are watching or listening, who have laid down some money in order to get one of these, I want to know what you think. Now, personally speaking, I was expecting a bit of a price hike. I think everybody was at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean,
yes.
Let's be logical about this, right? And I can't fault Tesla for that. I do think that it's going way over what I was anticipating. I figured that they would do a $10,000 increase, to be honest with you. That was what I was assuming just in the back of my mind. So obviously I was wrong. And it's a painful thing to see for those of you guys who are touting Tesla's going to undercut the industry. No, but they are still managing to at least stay competitive. I was also concerned that they would go way over the industry.
And they did not, because the fanciest Lightning, the F-150 Lightning, you remember they had this black version of it?
Yeah.
And it was a platinum black.
With every possible feature.
It was 96.9.
Which
so
really
actually
is within spitting distance.
Within 3,000 of this.
Yeah.
So this is not out of this world, but it still breaks the promise.
All the Cybertruck vehicles are competitive with, I would argue, the EVs that they're competing against, as well as price-wise, I'm talking about, as well as competitive with their ICE versions. But I would argue, not only are they competitive with all these EVs or ICE vehicles, but they are better in most of the statistics. They are either equal to or better. And in some things, again, in the game-changing things as we talk about, having this vehicle should, in the next year or two, have the capability of driving itself. Okay? I think I would call that game-changing.
That they initially made.
Exactly.
So those are the disappointing things, the top 10 disappointing things about the Cybertruck. Once again, we really want to put it to the test, actually in the real world for ourselves.
I think people are afraid that once we put it on the Ike Gauntlet, which is on very first thing Anders is probably going to do with it, it may not do as well as perhaps some of the competition.
Or maybe it's going to be awesome.
It might be awesome. So for those of you
It might be
who
awesome
get
or it might
your hands
suck.
on one of
We
these,
don't know.
Especially you early adopters, let us know if you're interested in.
And of course we have reservations, but
for like 40,000.
we're not near the front.
Nowhere near.
And also I spoke to one of my friends last
Well,
week.
boys, I don't want to say the number for reasons I don't quite understand, but I can tell you, I don't want to, in case someone can take my VIN or do something stupid, but I can tell you that I'm under 800. So I should be one of the first. And maybe if you still want to talk to me after listening to me counterpoint everything, I'm in Colorado. Maybe I'll let you come visit and check it out.
He owns 2 Rivians, and he has one reservation for the Cybertruck. And I asked him, I said, I gotta know, did this presentation, we watched all of this,
Yes.
right? Did this presentation make you run out and trade your Rivian in R1T immediately on the Cybertruck? And he said no. So this gentleman has the means to purchase whatever he wants.
Yes.
And what he saw, the specs he saw, and the information he saw does not make him pull the trigger on the Cybertruck.
So, 2 things he was talking about. So I will concede as far as the event, the Cybertruck delivery day event. I was, for the first 10 minutes, I think it was really good. Elon was hammering out different things. They were showing videos. My God, it raced a Porsche 911 while towing a Porsche 911. They were shooting it. There was a bunch of really cool things. It was working its way to an epic presentation, but for some reason, for reasons I can't quite explain, it was cut off in about 10 minutes. Then they gave some vehicles to other people, and then they never went into anything. Everything that we've mostly learned has been through the website. So I concede that the presentation wasn't as polished but that's just the way Elon is, and every event that he's ever done is sort of like that. It's this sort of unusual, he was in the back of the bed of a pickup truck and you couldn't see him in the darkness, and it's just, he's a genius, and I guess these are just aspects of his behavior that comes with the territory, and maybe that gives it more as opposed to this production thing that it's less professional, but maybe more believable and more personable. But anyway, the specs impressed me, and the price was under, the fact that the all-wheel drive was under the tax credit, in my view, made this well worth it.
It says something.
You are indeed correct. Now, for those of you who are watching and listening, let us know in the comments below whether or not this is something that you would want to buy, if you had a reservation, if you're going to stick with that reservation, if you're angry, or if you, on the other side, if you're thrilled with this vehicle and you want to compliment it, please, all comments, send them down below. Try to keep them clean. Apparently to a guy named Isaac, I'm not very clean, so I'm going to try to be cleaner.
Yeah, we're family friendly.
We're trying to.
We
All right.
swear.
Well, I'm
to
not gonna.
swear, but we don't.
Not one.
I'm not going to leave my comments in the comment section. I'm going to post this video. Check it out.